Welcome to At the Fence Line with your hosts, Sarah Chambers and Gavin Benker.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the At the Fence Line podcast. I am your host, one of your hosts, Sarah Chambers. I'm here with Gavin Becker.
Hello,
How's the day
everyone.
going? Yeah, how's the day going so far, Gavin?
Good. Yeah, busy time of year, but doing really well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm doing really good. I'm excited for today. We've got a really fun episode planned. Hopefully we're also going to get into some pretty real conversations about what it means to farm today. We're going to be doing that with our guest, Jay Peterson. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Glad to be here, Sarah and Gavin. First time I got to chat with Gavin, so we're starting off hot. And our I'm gonna say we're gonna be friends. We're gonna go right past acquaintances, right to friends, Gavin. How's that sound?
Sounds great. And what better way to do it than on a podcast? Sounds good.
Exactly.
Just live for everyone to witness. So Jay, a lot of people know you from social media, specifically from the videos or from some videos that I think a lot of people probably wouldn't expect to see coming out of a farmyard. But behind that is someone who's not just creating content, but I would say you're thinking pretty deeply about what it means to be a progressive farmer, how technology fits into agriculture, and where the line is between growth, pressure, and actually doing things the right way. That feels like a lot of pressure for this conversation. Like you have to live up to that. Are you feeling that or you got it?
Yeah, we'll be, we're cocked, locked, and ready to rock. So
Okay,
we'll
so
hit it. We'll hit all the heavy stuff and maybe have a couple laughs.
okay, good. Okay. So we're going to talk about TikTok. We're going to talk about social media and agriculture, the pressure to constantly expand, and also what it means to farm with integrity, especially in a world and an industry that feels like it's constantly pushing for more. So, um, right off the bat, though, to kick it off, why don't you tell everyone about you, about your farm, and the origin story of your social media pages?
Sure. Well, we farm out of Frontier, Saskatchewan, in the southwest corner, heart of the Palliser Triangle. We're just over 11,000 acres right now, specializing in Cutlass Oriental mustard production, small red lentils, and Durham wheat. I did start growing a few large green lentils last year. And yeah, just always trying to deal with a drier climate right here. Social media journey started probably right in the heart of COVID. I was watching a lot of YouTube videos at night before I went to bed. And, one of the things that I noticed was a lot of clickbait to get people in the thumbnails. And one of the things that I wanted to start was normalizing normal, that not something bad doesn't have to happen in every episode of a YouTube video or every Instagram post. And we don't have to have tug of wars with our tractors to try and gain followers. And I also wanted a voice for the Southwest Saskatchewan farmers. And over time I have met some more. There are a handful of great accounts that come out of the Southwest, but at the same time, at that point in time, I didn't really know anybody in the social media landscape, and I wanted the Southwest to have a good, strong voice, and so I started making YouTube videos and didn't really care for the format as much. I want something that felt more real time, and I moved to Instagram from there, which seemed to be more successful. And then I went to TikTok at a point because I just thought it was easier to edit there. And then, it's also a good place to post terrible ideas, and there's stuff there that never saw the light of day on Instagram. Uh, so yeah, and that's sort of how we got here. Kind of bullied some people into being my friends and helping me along, and probably made some lifelong friends from it, and we continue on to this day.
Amazing. So, I mean, definitely a lot of what you post online is the day-to-day of your life, of working on the farm, of running a business. But a lot of what you post as well tends to be on the sillier side. So when you talk about, other people in your area on social media, just even family, neighbors, what what are people's reactions to the more sillier videos that you're posting?
I mean, I think everybody enjoys it for the most part. I think everybody likes to look at the lighter side of things. I don't I'm sure there's people around home here who see my stuff, but for the most part I don't get too many comments. As it's usually you get outside of where you live though, and you get more comments. I'm trying to think actually I was at a drill clinic the last week, and they drew more people from outside areas than they normally would. And I there was actually a couple people there who I have light acquaintances with through Instagram or whatever, and they recognize me and I recognize them, and a subtle nod of the head, and we carried on. But so it's good. It's good. It's good to be out there and represent the Agstagram.
Sure. And I mean, you're like, of course, absolutely one of my favorite like Instagram egg content creators. Uh, I follow like quite a few pages. I like Two Lefts is one of my favorite. Jackie Aaron, I went to school with her. Farmerizer, also from my area. Farming with Zoe is absolutely one of my favorite people to follow. But do you think that social media has created a pressure for farmers to maybe look more successful than they really are?
Yes and no. I mean, I think one of the big draws on social media is the biggest of the big in the equipment. And I think everybody wants to show that off. But I think there's also a space to be gained by uh being authentic. You mentioned the tulips, Cassandra and Stephanie, and they don't run the big the newest equipment. I don't think. I see quite a bit of their content, and they're, I would consider them acquaintances. They had to put up with me asking them some questions early on, and but they're very authentic, and they do extremely well, and they have some of the greatest, ag fashion, McDonald's commercials out there.
I think that you,
Coming
don't
back.
need to r yeah, you don't need to run big equipment maybe when you're like a model, that that sort of helps
True, but also
working
the
in their
like
favor.
two of the nicest people ever,
Nice.
at the same time, and their husbands are great as well. And I can't remember, it was in the COVID years, and their Cassandra's husband ramped the combine over a ditch one day, you know, just sort of unexpected, because he saw the ditch, and I guess as a professional water ski jumper, no fear,
Okay.
so
Wow, okay. Well, don't try that at home, kids. I don't know.
it's yes. Yes.
Hey, hey, Jay, now that we've got the intros out of the way, can I jump into a little bit more of the meat of our back and forth today?
Sure, let's get into it.
So Sarah gave me we chatted a little bit about the episode coming up, and she told me all about you and how you guys have gotten to know each other over the years. And she really wanted to make a point about how you are on the lookout for kind of like new technologies. You mentioned you farm in a drier climate, right? So any little edge is you're looking out for those, and that makes sense. That makes a lot of logical sense to me. Um, so would you classify yourself as a progressive farmer? And what does that mean? How would you define that?
I mean, I always have classified ourselves as progressive for the most part. I would say that the earlier parts of my career, which I don't really consider my farming career to have actually started until I graduated from university in 2008. I don't think and I was essentially up until that point, I was just doing what my dad told me to make the wheels go up and down the field. And then after that, I got more involved in the heavier thinking of it. And I for a long time we were progressive as I would say on the tech side of things. We're first to have auto steer, the first to have um wireless blockage monitor system on our seeder. So for a long time, we're very, very progressive on the tech side. And now I think that gap is sort of closed, and it's been probably harder in the last few years, unless you've got seriously into drone technology or things like that, to separate yourselves or be an absolute new adopter of it. There's things out there that don't work as well in our areas, like variable rate technology. I don't think that our the type of land we have here lends itself to the cost for variable rate technology, or the impact that you get out of it. But then also, I would say in the last 10 years, or maybe since 2000, yeah, about probably the last 10 years, I think there's a big push on the personal side, the ethical side, to be progressive there as well, the human resources side. So it's always, we've kind of continually tried to progress and get better as an operation, one way or another. So, maybe if we're not 100% advancing the tech side, we're advancing on the other side. So I do consider ourselves a progressive farm when I look at us at a whole.
Awesome. And you answered one of my follow-up questions in your answer. So, bonus points, because I was going to ask about the mindset. If I think a lot of people equate progressive farming with tech, but it's not all about tech. So thanks for, adding that to your answer. What's something that you would say was a big success, kind of like recently, in like the recent to medium past, of something that you've adopted, and it doesn't have to be tech, but it can be tech if you want. What's something that you would chalk up as a win?
I think, and I almost think it's went overboard at some points, with how comfortable we've got. But I think just working comfortably has been one of the biggest things. Obviously now the massage seats and things like that, you can't get away from them. They're all heated and cooled and that. But I really think that that's something that's increased efficiency. Is just overall farmer comfort on long days, taking the stresses out of your day as much as you can, and being able to work in that environment has allowed us to push harder and longer in a more uh safe space, safe mindset.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And that's not something you can measure, right? Like it's indirect. Maybe you can measure it over time, right? But um,
It's very indirect. I remember the first time I convinced my dad. It was, and this was, I can't exactly. It was probably about 2010, and I convinced my dad to spend an extra $800 for high definition HID lights and a heated leather seat. And everybody said, "You're crazy." And I just said to dad, I said, "It gets cold out there on a cedar at night. And if I have to go out and unplug hoses and do this and do that, and I can get back into this cab and I can be warm and comfortable, I'm going to be a lot better off." And, a credit to my dad, he's bought into a lot of my ideas over time, whether or not the overall community around us has thought it's been a great idea. I've sat in the coffee shop with him a handful of times, and I had people trying to tell me that GPS and auto steer would never catch on, at one point, and now it's almost an industry standard to have. So there's been many of those conversations that we've had to try and expand into those areas.
do you have an example or a thought in your mind about something that people are maybe testing or being early adopters of right now that's kind of um, looked at with raised eyebrows that will be completely normal in ten years or so? Any any predictions on that?
I can't say with certainty, but even right now, like, especially in our area, we haven't went huge into the drone technology. I bought a drone, the M3, 2 years ago to try and do field mapping and things like that because I thought that was a good entry level to get into maybe a spray drone at a point, but it really hasn't come to fruition here. I know people who have spray drones and they don't use them very much. And I do think that probably one day will be probably a nice addition to any farm. But for us right now, the efficiency isn't there, and I haven't got to a point where I'm really happy. The the computing power and whatever that it takes me right now just takes me and too much, data for me to go through that I haven't got into a usable form yet. I probably have a terabyte worth of maps from last year that we scouted with the drone, and we've rendered them, and I have no idea what to do with them. And I know there's people out there that do, and I know it's becoming bigger here and there, and I know even right now there's a push from PMRA to push through almost aviation standards for the chemicals so people can start using spray drones. But for me, I think everybody will probably have one at a point in time, especially in 10 to 15 years, and as swarm technology gets better. But right now, it's just, I think in our area, and others, I think it's still getting raised eyebrows.
Awesome. Thank you.
And so Jay, if you're talking about something that other farms, it's becoming more commonplace for them compared to you. And I think just that idea of kind of comparing yourself to other farms is something that maybe not a lot of people talk about, is that like competition that exists in the industry. For me, sometimes it feels like we have this sort of win at all costs mentality that is creeping in more and more, where, the equipment needs to be bigger, we got to go faster, more acres, more yield, more everything. Do you feel that pressure to kind of constantly expand? And if not, you're somehow falling behind?
I think that's probably a natural progression or the way that farming's went since the early 2000s as the techs got better and machineries got better. I think everybody's felt that pressure, and I think it would be I would doubt you would find a farmer that would say they've never looked across the road, or even when you're working, you can always see the other farms working and you wonder what they're up to over there. Or things always seem to be going better for the farms around you because, you don't know what their struggles are, what's broke down on their farm that day. So I think it was a natural progression, you know, though over the last 5 years, I wouldn't necessarily say that everybody says that bigger and faster is better. We definitely learned that with spraying. When I started running the high clearance, we were going ultra low water and you were going as fast as you can. And now over time, we've realized that probably 14 to 15 miles per hour is better. And way more water is better, so it's a little bit longer process. So, things that we thought bigger, faster, stronger haven't always turned out to be in our best interest, and I think there's a lot of places you could apply that to modern farming. I've always tried to not always say that I wanted to be necessarily bigger, but also do a really good job of what I'm doing at the time. And through our progression, that was always something that we sort of milestoned as we were growing in acres, was to do a good job of what we were doing before we tried to expand it into the next opportunity.
So you just mentioned like modern farming and this idea kind of modern expectations, but how are you balancing that with traditional farming values and the idea of farming with integrity?
I think it's a really difficult conversation because in modern farming, it really feels like you're in competition with everybody. And to take any opportunity at all is to take an opportunity away from somebody else. And whether or not that opportunity has, no matter how that opportunity comes to you, whether it's in you've done it with integrity or without, you're still taking possibly an opportunity from somebody else. Historically, the opportunities that we have taken advantage of have been opportunities that have come to us. It hasn't always been opportunities that we've sought out. Very rarely have we sought things out. It's been opportunities that have come to us because of the style of operation that we run, and that people like that, and the values and morals and the tradition that we try and carry on in a modern era. And so through that, we obviously have taken those to try and stay at a level that we felt we've need to, but I we've neither purposely went out and tried to take opportunities from other people as well. And I think that always gets lost in translation at times, because no matter what, you know, somebody is not farming that land because I'm farming that land. Um, and yeah, and sometimes it hits really close to home, and you have to make really tough decisions. And there's been a handful of cases where I've passed up opportunities because, I don't want to get into any specifics, but the opportunity was just way too close to my personal life, and I didn't want to, you know, um, to go down that route. And you know, we did that, and over time, more opportunities come up. Um, and and that's just sort of how we've decided to be. And it's not always easy, and it doesn't always bring around easy conversations, but in the long run, I think it's did us more good than it has harmed us.
Do you think that this idea of ethical farming has become, something that you have to think about today more than your dad had to think about when he was more running the show?
I think it's changed. I think the ethics are the same, but the business environment is different. When, obviously my dad's been essentially farming on his own since he was in his late 20s, and that's quite a few years ago now. I think there is always the opportunities there ethically. One, quick family story. We had some family land, and this was actually my grandpa. It was 2 quarters, and it was owned by our family. And that uncle had moved to Vancouver, and he offered my grandpa both quarters of land, and my grandpa said, "Oh, that's too much for one farm that's not fair. So we'll take one, and you can offer this other quarter to another farm." So I mean, it's the same. The business environment has just changed, where we're talking about bigger land parcels, and I feel like the importance of that, um, because as they say, they're not making any more land, they're not making necessarily any more opportunities. So the I feel like the stress and the importance that this comes with, um, really, really has amped up that decision making process. And even you don't have to go back that far. Yeah, I don't think I want to tell that story, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of things. We all have these stories, right?
Huh.
But yeah, there's these situations come up all the time, whether it's dealing with grain, dealing with business, dealing with your suppliers. There's a level of we try and carry a level of honesty and and truthfulness and the way we deal, and we try and say what we do and do what we say.
Oh,
Yeah, excellent. Jay, you have a knack of like answering follow-up questions if we just kind of let you go. So you have a knack of reading the virtual room, I guess I could
I
say. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm actually doing that good of a job at answering the questions, or I'm just a bit of a chatterbox, Gavin. It might be as much that as anything, and Sarah would know this, knowing me for a bit now, but I have a tendency to try and over explain myself in any situation and get all the facts and angles out there.
Well, I think you do, and I'm learning it, right? We are becoming friends, like we said over the podcast. I was going to ask a follow-up question about ethics and being a stand-up farmer, so to speak, because you initially talked a lot about land, but then right at the end, just as I was about to ask my follow-up question, you started to hit a little bit on other components, other decision-making, dilemmas, and how you apply ethics and stuff to those decisions. And that's the essence of being a farm owner, right? It's land stewardship, it's employee management, it's who you want to work with, how you want to make decisions, all that stuff, which you touched on. But in that kind of same vein about the challenges and opportunities when it comes to ownership, and I'm going to try to tie this in a little bit here as well with adopting new technologies or new ways of doing things. So you could do stuff on a dollar basis, right? What's it going to impact my income statement? How's it going to impact my balance sheet? But does the impact to yourself, your lifestyle, your work-life balance, does that come into play? Where does that fall in the ranking of how you make those decisions? I know you talked about cab comfort technologies.
Yeah, I guess you're just talking about personal comfort technologies, and how good you feel about or yeah, just how easily you deal with these stresses and these situations. I think there's a differing, everything's on a sliding scale. I'm that guy who can stay up all night thinking about something that my second grade teacher said to me, so everything comes back to haunt me. So I'm very careful to uh with my words. Words are a very powerful thing, and and the decisions you make and how you act are a very powerful thing. And I take I may take a more serious approach to that than some people, and that's fine. Uh but it does affect your personal life. It does affect your overall stress level, but it does, like you mentioned, it does affect, you can make these decisions that affect your balance sheet. Whether that's an agronomic decision, or, there's all sorts of decisions you make through the year, who you want to market your grain through. I've taken 15-20 cent a bushel discounts to deal with somebody that I want to deal with, who's treated me best in the past, and who I know is going to treat me fairly as well in the future. And I'm a big believer in, I've always said that I want to build my farm and on singles and doubles. I'm not trying to hit that home run every year, because the statistics of that are just too low. So I try and even these things out over time, even agronomically, on years where we could have tried to push our rotation into crops that we knew were better money makers. It didn't make sense agronomically. You look at this year, I'm overly, you know, my agronomics are overly cereal heavy, which I don't love. But every time I look at it, there's no way around it. And the only way I can, think about it is the year after I'm going to have 60% specialty crops in. It's actually 67%, but who's counting? But So you just have to balance these things out in the long run, and I'm a big believer that it all comes out in the wash in the end. And things are hard enough as it is. I don't try to make my day harder, but I also don't try and make anybody else's day harder either. I don't ever do that, and I say sorry a lot. So
Would you Yeah, I like that answer. You're speaking my language there. Would you say your definition of success has changed over time? Or is your definition of success maybe just a little different than the kind of the overarching industry average, you could say?
I think my definition of success has probably changed over time, but that's probably just because I've matured as a person. When I started and I was younger, I was more, trying to carve out my own thing in a way. Even though I farmed with my dad, I felt I had a rather large reputation to hold up to, from my great grandfather to my grandpa and his brother and my dad. I felt it was a big reputation, but I didn't necessarily want to be known for just being my father's son either. I wanted to be known for something else. So I had a lot more fearlessness in how I farmed, and the drive was the same back then, but I you know that mindset was just a little bit different. And then over time, as things have evolved, I wanted to, we kind of got to a point where, as my dad got older and we had a bit more acres, then we had to bring more people in. And now I want to be a successful manager. I want to be, known as a successful, business person and things like that. And then that feels more like just as much as success to me. Sadly, unfortunately, in a way, we still live in a business though where, that revenue at the end of the day kind of still makes a difference, and you got to try and hit your targets there as well. And so that's always been something that I've had in my mind as well. And it's balancing revenue versus costs and things like that. And I still value that as well as a success. So I might just have a bit of a different spin on it now than I did when I was 25.
I I think it's really interesting to reflect back on how success has changed for you over time and that sort of quest for success. Um, Looking back over the course of your career so far, what's the craziest thing you've ever done to try and give yourself an edge?
I mean, when I was young, obviously, you know, I read an article one time in the Country Guide, and I wish I could remember who these guys were. But there was an article, and I was young and I was just starting out. And this was probably my third year farming full time, I would say, and I was really getting into it. And my dad and I had a conversation that winter, and we had kind of said we're both all in. And I end up reading before spring. I end up reading this article about these two brothers, and they're farming massive land and they don't have any employees. And essentially this mindset has changed somewhat over time, but essentially you have to be able to work 24 hours a day in seeding and harvest. And I got it in my head, okay, to be a progressive farmer, this is what I have to do, and I have to learn it. And I wasn't great at it to begin with, and it wasn't the best thing. And so I remember one day we had a problem in the field during seeding that year, and it was like 9:30, and dad was like, "Hey, we're going home," you know. And I was like, "No, I'm gonna do this. Like, I'm getting our acre goal in. I'm getting back out there and whatever." Now, unbeknownst to him, at the same time, this is all on me. This is all my drive. I don't want anybody to get mixed up with that. But I also read somewhere that if you take a whole bunch of hydroxycut, which is a kind of a diet thing, not only does it kind of help you stay up, but it's a diet suppressant. So now I feel like I can stay up and I don't have to eat. So then I started, when I was feeling a little laggy or whatever, and I'm not, this is not a recommendation to anybody. Please don't be like me. But, I would jam 6, 8 hydroxy cuts and away we would go. Whether it helped or not, who knows? It made me feel better at the time. And that's just something I did because I read this article. I felt, I need to be this guy. I need to have this edge because this is what success right now looks like, is being this maniacal workhorse. And yeah, and I don't know if Dad ever knew or didn't know, but it's probably the wildest thing I ever did to try and gain an edge. Luckily, at a point, I was just able to switch to energy drinks and Pop Tarts, and extreme fear of failure, and that pushes me through now.
It's a good motivator. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that the hydroxy cut don't stop working for anything person has now turned into the I need a massager in my combine seat.
And some
It's
snacks. Yeah.
I mean,
How
I think it's one of those things I was during those years, the hydroxy cut years, we'll call them, which actually now I'll still take a couple if I have to curl 3 games in a day. But, uh, you know, my joints are a lot more worn out than they used to be. And I think part of that is from all the dancing.
Okay. Maybe it might be. Please don't. We're so work-life balance like pushers in what we do that I don't know. Don't do what Jay does. That's all I'm saying. He said it, but I'm going to say it too. I'm really excited for the next segment, the next part of this podcast. I don't know. Um, like you referenced, you and I have worked together for a while now. Like you also referenced, sometimes like there's a question and then you talk around it for a little bit. So because of that, I have the joy of like knowing random facts about you, and I just want to take the opportunity to blast some of that out there. So we're gonna do
Oh
rapid
boy.
fire. Yeah, we're gonna do rapid fire questions. You have to say the first thing that comes to mind, and I'm limiting you to like 1 to 2, a maximum of 3 words. So it's quick. You ready?
Yep. Let me riff.
Okay. Okay.
No
Coffee.
riffing. No riffing. Riffing means going on. Rapid
Okay.
fire.
Yeah. Quick. Okay.
Okay.
Coffee or energy drinks during harvest?
Coffee. I love coffee.
Good answer. Tractor brand loyalty. Is that real or overrated?
Real.
Crop that stresses you out the most?
Lentils.
If farming disappeared tomorrow, what career would you have?
Chef.
Hmm. What's your favorite cooking show?
Oh, blank menu for you. I love me some Choi Kang Rock.
What's your favorite dish that you've recreated from a cooking show?
Oh, golly. Smoked tri-tip with tiger bite sauce.
That sounds delicious.
You
What's your
gotta
favorite book?
toast the peppercorns though.
Okay. What's your favorite book?
Oh, I gotta think about this one just for a second.
You can have a second.
The Winter King, but not like it was Cromwell's reinterpretation of the Arthur. It was a 3-part series. Or he also did another one on Stonehenge that was fantastic.
So not Akatar then. Okay, that's
It
fine. All I
definitely
needed
not.
to know. Aliens, real, fake, or already farming somewhere better than we are?
You know what? We don't have time for this, but I'm gonna say fake. But if you want to know why, look up Brian Cox's reasoning, and it'll make sense, Sarah.
I feel
Oh,
okay.
Jay, we could talk so much about that. So I'm gonna answer because I want to answer the other one.
Okay.
All real and already farming somewhere better than we are. Better than we are because Brian Cox aside, I don't say he's wrong, but nobody knows. But if the universe is infinite, that means there are a lot of farming civilizations out there, and someone must be doing it better. So yeah,
That's true. However, if you look at the lifespan of the universe versus how long it takes a civilization to not only begin life but get to a point of travel and things like that,
yeah,
the chances of it are just extremely low.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
just for that, when you look at it from a time frame lens,
yeah.
that's all.
I think we watch some of the same stuff, Jay.
I feel
Most likely. I mean, if
I
we're
mean
gonna be best friends, it just happens. I have to
Wait,
get
a
you on the
best
Korean
friends.
cooking show, though.
I thought we were just moving from acquaintance to friend. Okay, well, hey,
Well, it's just
sure,
things
I'm in. I'm
it
down. Yeah,
happens.
yeah,
It happens fast. You can always have more than one best friend.
yeah, sure, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna ask one last question.
Yep.
You farm right on the border to the US. So, serious question. Is the reason you have never stepped illegally across the border in your 40-something years of life because you are generally a scared baby? Or is it because you have PTSD from your dad yelling at you not to do it when you were a teenager?
Dad never yelled at me to do it when I was a teenager because we weren't down there then. So it is just
Mhm.
because I'm a scared baby
Okay.
and I've heard too many horror stories and yeah, I don't want to be, yeah, I don't want to get in trouble. I
You
don't
gotta
want to
live a
have the
little.
Black Hawk come over me.
I don't think it will. You gotta live. You gotta just live. Scared baby.
Okay, well, we're going to start wrapping up here, but that doesn't mean we're just going to say bye and whatever. I still want to talk to you a little bit, Jay. We'll still become better friends in the next couple minutes. But just to wrap up, back to kind of like big picture. Not that we didn't talk a lot of big picture stuff today, but I don't want to ask what you think farming will look like in 20 years. I'm more curious to know, what do you hope farming will look like in 20 years?
I hope that in the long run, I just hope that we all have a chance, and I feel like it's kind of changed a bit. When I started farming, I always felt like I could work hard enough to make money. And over the past, just the way the environment's changed and things like that, I've felt probably the last few years, with the swings in prices and the swings in weather and the changing to programming and things like that. Obviously, become more and more difficult. It's become more about business decisions and not overextending and marketing well and doing this right and doing that right. And it's kind of got away from, the blue collar hard work. If you put your head down, you're gonna be okay. And I would just like to see that continue on into the future, or that people who want to be involved in agriculture, that their hard work can be rewarded. And it doesn't get to be like some of the, almost like a financial shootout, if you will, to see who's going to be the biggest and the best. Uh, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I like that answer. So where results aren't already kind of baked in, where there's still opportunity for someone to get ahead based on decision making and hard work and stuff like that. That's great. Um, on that same kind of tangent, if you could go back in time and you could tell a younger version of yourself about stuff like work ethic, decision making, what would you tell yourself? Keeping in mind all the stuff we talked about today.
I think it would probably be important for me to tell myself to relax a little bit. Um, it's something that I probably haven't done very well since 2010. Um, and and just that you're going to find a solution, because I feel like there's a lot of scenarios that come up in a year, that are difficult, that you don't necessarily know how easy the solution is going to be, whether that's on the business side, whether it's breakdowns. I had a hitch fall off a drill one time in the middle of the night because somebody put a castle nut, a bolt in a castle nut through him backwards, and next thing I got a hitch laying on the ground at 2 a.m. on a long weekend, and I can't get a hold of anybody. And you just don't know always how you're gonna get through these situations and figure it out in the way that you want to. And I think that would be something that I would enforce to myself, that you're gonna find a way.
Nice. Thank you.
That was really great. That was good. Thank you. I hope other people heard that too. It's not just Jay that's going to find a way, it's everyone else.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say that you feel like you haven't had the opportunity to, or have we solved all of the world's problems in the last 45 minutes?
I'm not sure. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, and the amount of time I spend on the phone and things these days, usually, I'm kind of, I know this is going to surprise a lot of people, but I do get sick of hearing my own voice sometimes. Just because a lot of our decision making is very conversation related these days, between you got to talk to this person and talk to this person, and the back and forth. So I think we've covered a lot of good stuff, and I hope, maybe some clarity has come out of it, and gave some food for thought.
Well, I'm very grateful, and I know that Gavin is as well, that you would take the time to have this conversation with us. I think that we talked about a lot of things that I think other people are feeling, but maybe not talking about as much. So, maybe not the hydroxy cut, but the a lot of the other pieces. So, whether it's pressure to grow, the role of technology, or kind of just figuring out what success looks like on your own farm, I think that you've given people a lot to think about. So, um, I would call that a success. So to those of you that are listening, if you got something out of the episode, then share it with someone you know. I think these are the kind of conversations that are worth having. So thanks for joining us, Jay. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thanks,
it's
Jay.
been a real pleasure, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of At the Fence Line with Sarah Chambers and Gavin Bedker. If you have any questions or comments about today's episode, or would like to get in touch with us, please find us on Instagram at backswath_MGMT, or through our website at www.backswath.com. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the host and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views, policies, or positions of Backswath or its affiliates. Any reference to specific products, services, organizations, or individuals does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Backswath.